Welcome to the fourth First Chesapeake chat session. I am Victoria Mulvihill, and I am a First Chesapeake alumni. I will be helping to introduce the First Chesapeake chat sponsored by Newport News Shipbuilding. I would like to thank this session's sponsor, Triangle, for making this chat possible. Just some housekeeping, we will let the speakers present and then open up for questions later on. The session today is an alumni talk presented by FRC team 7429 Convergence, and I will now throw it over to Paul to welcome the session speakers.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop. I am the coach as well as a first alum with Convergence, FRC 7429 out of Virginia. With me today, I've got a couple other alumni from the First Chesapeake community, as well as First in general, and really excited. So one of the biggest things that we learned with First is the whole concept of giving back. So we're really excited to have this chat and everything going on with it about just different ways that alumni can give back to the program and just continue to grow that First family of programs. So really excited about that. So just real quick, a little bit about myself. So this is my 16th year with First. So I joined First team my sophomore year. Didn't have any idea in terms of what I was doing mechanically or anything like that, and ended up just kind of being taught some of the ropes and everything with it to basically become one of the team captains by the time my senior year came around. As most of us do, I absolutely fell in love with the First family of programs, and every year since I've been mentoring or coaching one of the First robotics and First tech teams. So it's a really cool program and everything in terms of that. But it doesn't really just stop there. So I'm actually broadcasting from Target right now. But when I was a college student, I was working with Target part-time. And a lot of the soft skills and different things that we don't necessarily think about with robotics, I actually used a lot of those and did some operational research projects and everything with them, to the point that Target ended up paying for me to finish my degree and my bachelor's. So there's a lot of really good stories out there in terms of the First community about just how First is giving back beyond the robot and everything with it. So it's really cool in terms of that, to find different paths that aren't necessarily STEM related, but obviously the easiest ones are STEM related. One link that is super beneficial and everything for alumni or seniors at this point is the firstinspires.org/alumni website, which they're going to throw here in the chat just a second. But with that website, there's a lot of different resources out there, as well as different internships that alumni can actually go ahead and apply for and, basically continue their First journey and everything with it. One of the other big things that really what we need in terms of a district, in terms of community, is just really additional volunteers. It's one of those things that when asked, I always, in terms of why I'm still coaching, why I'm still doing robotics after 16 years, why I'm volunteering at these events, the answer I tell them is, well, first off, I love it. But the other thing is that I'm giving back to the program that has given me so much in terms of my career and everything else. I work Target now part-time, but my main job now is I teach applied engineering and mechatronics at a high school in Chesterfield. And the whole way I was able to make a career change from being an executive and analyst to become an educator was by a contact that I actually met in the First community. So when I was going through that part of my life, trying to figure out, okay, what do I like about my job? I like the math and the efficiency piece of it, but I really enjoy talent development and bringing people along. What does that look like? So again, just really excited that we were able to make that happen. With that being said, definitely want to bring everyone else in and start talking about, their stories and some of their pathways and everything with that. All right. So now that I got some other friendly faces and everything there, I'm going to start with Trey. Trey, if you can introduce yourself, talk to us a little bit about your journey and what you've kind of seen and everything with the First program.
Sure. So I haven't been in FIRST quite as long as you have. 16 years is hard to beat. But I started my first career, in quotes here, when I joined my local FRC team in my junior year, which is 2014 was my first game. Aerial Assist is what we were playing. Wearing my Aerial Assist shirt right now, not that you can tell on stream. But from there, I was really in love with the program. I had a great time being on a team in 2014, 2015. And then I graduated and went to a college focusing in engineering. I had always kind of known that I wanted to do something computer related. I really enjoyed kind of tinkering around on the programming side when I was in high school. But then when I joined the FRC team, it really gave me an appreciation for how things happen on the hardware side of things when the bits actually meet the metal and it kind of all meshes together. And so from there, I put together those two things and decided to double major in electrical engineering and computer science, which really, at some level, the two like to, depending on what side you're on, the people that are really far in computer science think that electrical engineering is so far away, and the people in electrical engineering really low level just think that computer science is too highfalutin for them. But there's this kind of middle ground where everybody gets together and it's unclear where robotics falls in. Some people like to claim that it's electrical and other people like to claim that it's computer science, and all departments like to do it because everybody wants to do robotics, and it's been a really fun thing for me to be on both sides of that. So now that I've graduated from my undergrad, I went to NC State. I'm actually originally from North Carolina. I moved up to Virginia to go to UVA for work on my PhD in computer science with a research focus in robotics. So that's what I'm doing now, continuing to work on robotic stuff. And I think Dr. Kate's going to give us a similar story here in a minute. But the from the first community side of things, I really have never left. Kind of like what Paul was saying, it's been something that I've tried to carry with me as I've gone through. I kind of went the other direction from Paul in that I am no longer really affiliated with the team. I mean, I'm still friends with the people that I was on team with. I roomed with the people I was on drive team with in college, and I still hang out with them from time to time. But I've moved away from helping a team directly to try and support as much as I can, sort of the event logistics side of things. So that has been, for me, I really enjoy refereeing. When I was on a team, I was the annoying kid in the question box trying to ask the head ref as many different loopholes as I could possibly come up with. And now on the other side, I'm the person who gets to go sit in the question box and have those conversations with the students. And I find that to be really enriching for me, and I hope the students get as much out of it as I do. But the now that I've done that, I've also tried to move on and try to expand my horizons, and I'll work on I've tried to be a robot inspector for FTC a little bit, which I'm not quite as good at, but I've dipped my toes in there. One of the other major things that I took on a couple of years ago is for my senior design project in undergrad. I worked on designing the current scoring system that's used for FTC, which has been a really positive experience for me, getting to work on something that's so instrumental to a program that I'm really a big fan of. And so that's been a lot of my time recently is on that side of things. So I've been as involved with FIRST as I think I can be at this point without trying to mentor a team, but I don't think I could be fair to a team at this point trying to play all the other cards I have. So that's my life.
Very good, Trey. That sounds awesome. Dr. Kate, take it away.
Hi. So I'm Kate. I actually grew up in Arizona, and I joined my first robotics team my senior year during Stack Attack. So I think I can about rival Paul maybe in the years in FIRST. That was our first year our team existed. So we kind of jumped into Stack Attack senior year, and we kind of just had no idea what we were doing across the board. None of us did. Which I actually was probably the best experience for me. After that, jumping into aerospace engineering at ASU, Arizona State, it was like, okay, I can do this. I just built a robot. We can jump in and have no idea what to do. And so I then continued studying aerospace engineering for my bachelor's, master's, and PhD, I came to Maryland to go to the University of Maryland Space Systems Lab for my graduate degrees for master's and doctorate, where I got to work on the Space Systems Lab on underwater robotics with a bent towards space applications. At ASU, I continued to help mentor my team 1212, but when I moved out here for graduate school, I didn't think I really had the time for that. So since then, I've been helping out at the event level, first as a robot specter, pretty much up until when we moved to districts, at which point I moved on to being a lead robot inspector. So I think that's my story. I currently work at the Naval Research Lab, still working on space robotics type thing.
Very good. So I think there's a couple different takeaways from this, right? So with that being said, right, my big message is that as alumni, the real challenge is just staying involved in whatever way we can, right? Now, if that's being able to put in a ton of hours and mentor teams or start teams, or if it's volunteering at a event or a couple events, and just continuously making it happen. I think it's one of those things, the work the volunteers do at these events, and I've been just about most of the positions out there, none of it's easy, but with a little bit of a learning curve, it's all, possible and everything for just about anybody can do. So it's one of those things, oh, well, I'm not super mechanical, I can't be a robot inspector. I promise you can be a robot inspector, right? Like, we can catch you up real quick and kind of talk through some of that stuff. So I think that's really
we can be a robot inspector pretty quickly. We need
Oh yeah. As long as you have the right game manual, you'll be great.
Yeah. Specifically that robot section.
Yeah, it's okay. But in terms of stuff, we're doing field reset or just bringing other people in, and that's really my, the other challenge I always try to tell people. It's like, all right, I'm glad you had a great time volunteering this time. Your goal or your homework for the next one is bring someone with you next time, right? Like, whether it's just somebody for field reset or another robot inspector or somebody helping control the stand, the crowd control and everything in the stands, just stuff like that. So that's really, but my big message and everything there. I think one of the other things that I hear about in terms of stories after the fact are always, I didn't realize I was learning this, or that we were covering these different soft skills or even major concepts in terms of mechanical or electrical or programming while we were doing it. But then I went to college or I went to industry or something like that. And now all of this stuff is now coming back to me and I know exactly what we're doing. And I love to hear those kinds of stories and everything with it. At this time, we got a little bit more time and everything. Do we have any questions out there in the universe from any of our watchers?
To kind of kick things off while we're waiting for some of those comments to come in, I had a question for all of you. What's maybe one skill that you didn't really know that you were getting at the time that has helped you now, either through your education or in your current job? Just pick one. I know there's got to be a ton, but
I can kick that off. Probably the one skill, kind of a weird, isn't necessarily a skill, it's just I can jump in head first into things. I am totally willing to try that now. I didn't know what I was doing there and it worked out great. Let me do that with other things in my life. We need a programmer to work on this thing. I can learn how to program C. I can learn how to scuba dive and dive with this robot system. Sure. That's worked out really well for me in life. And people may think I'm strange because of the weird things I've tried now. But yeah, no, it's a good thing.
absolutely.
I think one of the biggest things that I took away from being on a team, and that has really carried through both being a volunteer and just in my kind of professional life, when we had we had a rule on my team that if you were going to be in the pits, you had to be able to explain everything about the robot. Because if a judge came by and had to ask anybody a question on the robot, some of the more some judges would try and pick out the student who would be less busy, and usually if you were less busy, it means you weren't actively having your hands in the robot. And so sometimes if you just pop by to ask a question, maybe you weren't the person who designed the part that the judge wanted to ask about, because the person who designed that part, their hands were in the robot, but you still had to be able to talk about it because the judge needed an answer right then. So the rule was that if you're going to be in the pits, you had to be able to talk about every part of the robot, because that's how judging works. And from that, I think it really helped to cultivate in me and hopefully the other students on the team this ability to talk about technical subjects in a way that other people can understand. And I mean, sometimes the judges for first come from a wide variety of backgrounds. Some of them are very technical people coming through the program themselves. Other people are just members of the community who have come in and heard the first thing and thought it was a good thing to come see, but they don't necessarily have the technical background to understand what all of the parts are. Like if I call out a motor name, they're not going to know what that is from something else. But it has really helped me to develop this skill of taking something hyper technical, bringing it 30,000 feet up and explaining what it is, why we need it, what it helps our team to achieve. And that has been broadly applicable from all of my research directions, being able to explain my research to somebody who's not familiar with the topic, to in FIRST more broadly, being able to spread the message of what FIRST does to the general public.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to go with being resilient and adaptable in terms of what I learned looking back on it and had no idea I was learning in the process. There are countless moments every season where team members are put into some sort of situation where something doesn't work or doesn't fit or doesn't move the way that they were thinking, and they've got to come up and react quickly with it. So that's really been one of the big things that I did in terms of my career, in terms of as an analyst and executive, is whenever there was a situation randomly, it was, okay, well, what do we know? What can we do in this situation to make it as effective as possible? So that's really kind of what I would say I've been, I guess, blessed with and everything in terms of that. So, all right. See what
there was a comment that we can kind of alter some to ask as a question, but how would you how do the professional relationships that you made in FIRST compare to that of like the real world, or like with businesses and with sponsors and with other people that you came in contact with, even talking to the judges and mentors, like talking to somebody who's a superior?
Yeah, I mean, I think on my end and everything with it, I teach at a technical high school now, and one of the biggest things that we bring in is we do kind of like a business advisory council thing. And anytime we talk about these programs with the kids, that they just light up. And through that, we've actually been able to kind of grow those relationships, both with the students, with the schools, with the companies, to the point that the companies are advocating and everything for us, which is really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it just all kind of brings it all together. Let's see. Any questions out there? Let's see what we got.
I guess something else that we can ask for now is looking back, what was your favorite FIRST game to be a part of in any way? Because you've all been through a lot. I've only been out of I've only been in the FIRST world. You don't get out of it, but I've only been in the FIRST world for a little while, so I've only seen a few games, but you've seen so many more.
Favorite one. I am gonna go with it's a toss-up. It's either Lunacy, which it was just wild to drive with. But I think I'm going to go my first one. I think I'm going to go with First Frenzy. So the game element were basically these giant kickballs, kind of dodgeball, rubber balls, and there were a ton of them on the field, and you got points putting them in goals. But one of my favorite parts of the game was that the human player could shoot. So that was one of my many jobs with the team my first year. It was like, wow, this guy can actually put the ball in the basket. Like, this is great. This works. So it was like, oh, I get to play a sport with a ball instead of just like running on a track. Like, this is wild. So I really enjoyed that game. Yeah, that's gonna be the one for me.
I was only a student for 2 years, and my options were aerial assist and recycle rush. So I'm gonna have to go with aerial assist on that one. But since then, I've really enjoyed kind of being from the volunteer side of things. I really love this game. It's been sad that I only got to go to one event so far. It was a really good game, especially being. I've always said that I really love being a referee because I have the best seat in the house, being right up on top of the field, and this is one of the more really exciting games to be right up on top of the field for. And sad that I've had to only ref one event for this.
Kate, how about you?
Well, as a student, I only was in stack attack, so I'm going to take Trey's way out and say stack attack was my favorite because it's the only one that I can stick with. In terms of games since then, as kind of as inspector, my game isn't so much the real game so much as let's see if we can get all the robots through inspection. And even when I'm watching the games, I find myself just watching the batteries and the bumpers and not actually how the robots play, just trying to see who needs help and are things working and that. So they've all kind of blended together into a blur of really cool robot components and really cool robot parts. But every year there's some cool robots, so
very
it's hard for me to pick out which one's my favorites.
All right. One of the questions we have is, what is the funniest story from your time as a student? So my head refs on the call will like this. The year is 2011, so I've effectively been out of high school for 5 years. And my team receives a yellow card, and I was I was the drive coach, right? So I'm out on the field, not driving the robot. And the head ref came over and was talking to me, and we're having a great conversation. And she's like, yeah, well, I mean, just follow up with your coach and everything, in terms of, and I'm like, okay, I'm the coach. Thank you. It was wild. How about you guys? Trey, Kate, what we got?
So my original team's motto was it's only temporary unless it worked, at which point that was a permanent thing. I definitely remember going through inspections and somebody looking at a robot going, are those motors shimmed with Valentine heart candy boxes just crammed in there? We're like, yeah, they're the perfect heights. They worked really well. And so we kind of just always kind of had just this ugly robot, but it worked well, and it worked. I loved it. We got to be very creative in what we did. Since then, trying to think of other ones. I think the other favorite, one of my really funny times was I remember being so very excited opening up that kit of parts that second year when I was helping and pulling out a bag of these little screws with the little rubber feet on them for the compressors that used to vibrate like crazy, pulling them out and just being, we need to keep these. These are vitally important. I know what these little screws are now. And just being so very happy that I know what those are. And I know not to lose them this year. So
I learned the hard way how important those screws are. So I'm with you 100%. Trey, what about you, man?
So I think my funniest story, I kind of have two. One of them, the robot that our team built in my senior year, we didn't really think about weight at all until way after the fact. So I asked Matt to post a link in the chat of my our robot's picture. And the problem was we had built everything out of precisely cut aluminum from one of our sponsors, and we had no real way of getting out any of the extra weight. So we ended up taking just a hole punch and just hole punching out as many parts of the aluminum frame as we could just to get down to weight. And so there we are on bag day, just running an aluminum punch up and down this robot, anywhere that the punch was going to leave enough space for it to be even close to structurally sound. So that was just a fun time for us, trying to frantically get underweight. And then in aerial assist, one of the funniest things that happened to us is we used a giant, to shoot the big ball, we used a giant pressurized piston. And we found, going into one of our later events, that the way we had pressurized the tank was not legal because it didn't meet the tank safety requirements, and none of the inspectors had caught it. So it wasn't you weren't there, so it's fine. So that was a fun thing for us, as we quickly managed to just go put in more safety releases on the tank so that everybody could be safe. But it's a good thing none of us got hurt for the first couple of events.
I have definitely been there with the Swiss cheese method. It was a fun time. We were running low on time, and we just weighed too much weight, and so we just started making holes in the whole thing, and it was a time. So
if we're gonna talk about stories about being overweight, I'm gonna win this one. The year was, well, I guess the game was Rebound Rumble, and it was one of the first years that the team I was working with catted every part of the robot, or so I thought. And they catted basically hollow aluminum tubing when it was 80-20, and they didn't put any hardware in there because that was too hard, which, it's not an easy skill when you're learning to CAD for the first time. So we showed up to VCU for the regional, and we go to inspection, and the inspector is, oh, hey, what, you got a battery in there? You standing on the scale? Nope, sure don't. No, you have to have a battery. Nope, don't have battery in there. Guys, you got to come see this. They're 30 pounds overweight. So needless to say, the hole punch idea didn't work for us. So we ended up finding a portaband saw, and we just start taking the portaband to the superstructure that wasn't needed for the robot. It was a magical moment. So good stuff. Let's see, any other questions? No? All right. Well, Victoria, it looks like we're all wrapped up. I thank you and Trey and Dr. Kate and everyone for watching and everything at home, and hopefully this was beneficial.
all right. Thank you again to everybody who is listening in, and our speakers today. You all did a great job, and our sponsor, Triangle. I hope that everybody has a great rest of your day. Bye.